Tick, tick. All right, we're live.
Live from
Here we are, folks.
Chelsea. It's Tuesday night.
It's live from Yard Stream or StreamYard. It's
Yeah.
Tuesday night. Well, you know who I am, Peace, and
Yes.
you know who this guy is right here.
Right
So
here.
now we were gonna do a GoFundMe page and get Kevin make a bobblehead doll out of him.
Not that again.
So he can add it to his collection that way, and he'll sell them, and he'll even autograph a bobblehead doll for you. And that way, when you go down the road, Kevin's head will be bobbling down the road.
Oh boy, yeah, I'm sure everybody's gonna be banging down the door to get that one.
Well, it's something unique. Stephen King don't even do bobblehead dolls, so you know you got to do that.
That would be creepy. Him and his weird
Yeah.
head bobbing around.
I had a guest lined up that had an experience yesterday morning, and it was pretty phenomenal. I interviewed him on the phone. He was going to try to join us tonight, but his wife had made some kind of a Christmas shopping plan or something for the night, and so she overruled him being on the show. So I'm not going to use his name, but we're going to talk about his story. It has to do with a shadow figure, and I'll get into that in a minute. I assume everybody knows what a shadow man is. Do you know what a shadow man is, Kevin?
Why, yes, I do.
So, Wikipedia defines shadow people as supernatural, shadow-like humanoid figures that, according to believers, are you a believer, are seen flickering on walls and ceilings in the viewer's peripheral vision. So there's a lot more. I say they're claimed to be viewed as unrecognizable, fleeting shadows out of the corner of the observer's eye for just a few seconds. Now, I'm going to dispute part of that definition because I've actually captured a picture of a shadow person, shadow entity. But if you know where Rickwood Caverns is up in Blount County or Hayden, Alabama, yesterday, Monday morning, it was real dark, cloudy. The moon was not shining. And this is the story that was given to me by the gentleman I interviewed. He and his wife both. She saw it first and he saw it next. Bottom line is they're driving. She's driving him to work like at 4 o'clock in the morning. And it is pitch black out there. And you know, if you're out on a country road and there's no ambient light, you're not, unlike in a city and whatnot, and the moon's not shining and whatnot, it's dark. You got your headlights.
Yeah.
Something ran across the road in front of them that was darker than the night. In other words, if it's this dark, this figure was even darker.
Even darker, so you can see that.
Darker. So I interviewed him at length, and it clearly was not identified as a Bigfoot, Sasquatch type cryptid of any sort. And it was hard for him to even say that he would pinpoint it as a human figure. Mm-hmm. It had kind of a humanoid, but it was very tall, and it was almost like this figure did this to warn them that right down from there was a tree that had blown down on the road. So when they'd seen this figure, they slowed down, and then the next thing you know, around a curve, it's a good thing they slowed down. Bottom line, that tree was down. So he interpreted it to mean that whatever this entity was warning them, hey, slow down. There's something ahead of you here that can hurt you. So that was his story. And now Kevin's going to share. He said he came up with who's commenting over here.
I know that. That's good. Here, let's see. I'll show it.
There we go. Billy Bird Outdoors. There's something. Go ahead.
There's something abnormal in here. Who could it? Who or what could it be?
Yeah, right there. Right there.
Right there.
There's a lot abnormal here. Let's get real.
I do have Speaking of normal, I do have a little haunted doll sitting right here above the computer.
Okay.
Little Kathy. Now, she's been on the show before.
Has been, yes.
She's from Arizona, from the Arizona Paranormal Team.
All right.
All the way from a haunted, an undisclosed haunted house. Ooh.
Undisclosed. I like those undisclosed places.
Yeah.
Several years ago, over a decade ago, there is a lady that lives up on Simmons Mountain, up in Springville, Odenville area. Her house is way off the road in the woods. It's way out in the country. There's no ambient light. There's tree coverage and whatnot. Her husband had died in this bed, and she was complaining about waking up frozen in the middle of the night with a shadow figure bent over her because she was still sleeping in the same room and in the same bed that her husband had died in. So I went out there with my night vision camera, take pictures and do a little investigation. And I was pretty much left alone. There was nobody in this house. There's no light. All the lights were out. And this popped up in one of the pictures. And you see the shadow leaning over the bed there.
Yeah, I see it.
And first of all, that above it is not a witch's hat. That was just something she had hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you see that glow over there to the left in the picture, that was like her alarm clock. Okay. And there was no lights on. This is strictly a night vision shot with the infrared and whatnot. And that in the pictures before this picture was taken, that shadow was not there. I was standing in the doorway. There was nobody in the room. I was not blocking any light because the whole house was totally dark. Again, it was way off the road. Even if it had been near the road, there was no traffic. There was no street lights, and the moon was not shining, blah, blah, blah. This was out in the woods. And so that is my claim to having captured a possible shadow person. And that's exactly where she claimed that she would wake up in that bed and see the shadow leaning over her.
Oh.
So we did actually do called a minor exorcism, if you know the difference between a major exorcism and a minor exorcism. Minor exorcism is kind of like a house blessing. It's not exorcising a person, going, your heads are not twisting around and all that. Bottom line is it never came back. And that was the last of it. Who's Billy Bird Outdoors? This gives me the willies, okay? Identify yourself. Thanks for joining us.
This gives me the willies.
Our guest had to cancel tonight due to Christmas stuff, but we're going to go ahead and talk about shadow figures. So that happened yesterday morning by a gentleman that works up in Coleman and lives in Blount County. That was around Hayden and the Rickwood Caverns area on a 2-lane road, and this figure darted out in front of his vehicle. His wife saw it first, and then he saw it. And shortly after that, of course, when that figure darted across in front of him, it was not a cryptid. It was more like a dark, dark shadow figure. I think almost humanoid, from what I understood. And they hit the brakes, and just right down from there, a short distance, was a tree laying across the road, as if some entity was warning them, slow down. So with that, what did you find, Kevin, on you looking up? And you got any shadow people stories?
Yeah, well, there's another I thought of as we were talking about this. Alabama has its own famous shadow man. It's been prominent since the 1960s, and there's even a picture of him. Goes along with one of my favorite authors, who would be Catherine Tucker Wyndham. She had her own shadow man, who she named Jeffrey. And Catherine didn't really believe much in ghosts early on, but was a Southern lady, and she was a journalist for the Birmingham News for many years. and she loved storytelling. And among those stories she always heard were ghost stories, but she never knew if, she didn't really have a belief in ghosts. She was a Methodist and a Southern lady, and they just didn't really get into those things.
They steered clear of spooky and ghosts and
Yeah.
all that stuff. I
And
believe, don't they believe, going back to my childhood, of course, that anything like that is kind of messing with demons and evil spirits and so forth.
yeah, there's one of, us Baptists don't really even care much about it, but I don't know which other. I know there's some that, you got your Church of God, Church of Christ. There's some in there that, everybody that's demonic. But getting to little Miss Catherine, she said after her husband died, she started experiencing, which to me is I never got to really speak to her or interview her. I would have asked her about this, but I always wondered if it was maybe her husband's spirit, because things didn't start happening until after he died. Mm-hmm. But she never seemed to think, she didn't know who or what it was, but things started happening in her house. The rocking chair in the living room would rock by itself. Her cat would come in the room and see something and arch his back and hiss and take off running. Things started going missing, only to turn up in different places of the house. They heard doors open and shut. One day she had baked a cake she was going to take to a cake sale. And this is where she got the idea, whoever or whatever this thing was in her house was mischievous. When she baked that cake, she left it on the center of the table and stepped out to get something and came back just in time to see that cake on that platter sliding by itself across the table to the edge. And she made a quick dive and grabbed that cake and stopped it. And she said, "Now you here, whatever you are, stop messing with my things." And her kids would come over and visit. They were grown by then, and they started having experiences. And they said, "What the heck is this in your house?" She said, "I don't know, but he's kind of a trickster, isn't he?" She said, "What?" And I think it was one of her kids came up with the name Jeffrey. I don't know where that came from. They just said, "He sounds like a Jeffrey." And while she was still working on the paper, some of her coworkers, particularly a journalist named Nikki, whose last name I don't have, but her first name is Nikki, came over to see her house, and they took a bunch of pictures around the house. And they'd heard a little bit about the Jeffrey story, but they weren't all that big on it. They were just there to get pictures of her nice, pretty little southern home. And Nikki went back to the newspaper office the next day to develop the photos, and these are her words quoted: "What I saw in one of those photos made me almost overturn that bucket they put the photos in." She almost knocked it off in shock because this showed up. That's Nikki in the let me pull that back up. That's Nikki in the foreground. And to your right there is, they don't know what, some kind of misshapen shadow. And it looks like it's trying to wave. It's almost like it's got an arm extended with a knife. Yeah.
Looks like a knife or pen in the hand.
Well, Catherine would say maybe he was trying to wave and his hand disappeared on him. But he's sure got an odd shaped head. But that
it looks like somebody dropped him on his head too many times.
But that is indeed the weirdest shadow person photo I've ever seen. But they said they didn't ever see Jeffrey. That's the only kind of sighting was in that photo. But she would go around places, and she said, heck, if that thing didn't follow her. One time she went to a place here in Birmingham to do a talk, to do a little storytelling event for this company. And she went in their meeting hall, and they had all this football decoration. And there's a lot of Alabama. And Catherine was a avid Auburn fan. And she's standing there with the company representative. She says, you know, y'all sure got a lot of Crimson Tide stuff up in here. And as soon as those words came out of her mouth, there was a big old Roll Tide banner. One end of it, it was hanging up near the ceiling, and one end of it came loose and it just flung down toward the floor. And the company rep just kind of gasped, and she said, "Well, Catherine said, well, I guess Jeffrey don't like it either."
So everything she experienced was Jeffrey's fault.
Yeah, she even joked about that. Anytime anything would happen, we just blame it on Jeffrey.
Yeah.
But
Now,
that
what county did she live in?
she lived. Oh gosh, what's the name of the county where Selma is? She lived near Selma.
Yeah. Which is a haunted place to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they got a lot of stories around there, including one of my top favorites, the Sturdivant Hall haunted house.
So she wrote the book 13 Ghosts of Alabama?
Yeah, 13 Alabama Ghosts and Jeffrey.
And
13 Georgia
is that the only ghost book she wrote?
She wrote a bunch of them. 13 Alabama Ghosts. Then it got so popular, she wrote 13 more Southern Ghosts, which took place over different Southern states. Mm-hmm. Then she just started doing them on other. She 13 Georgia Ghosts, 13 Mississippi Ghosts, 13 Tennessee Ghosts.
Did you know her?
I didn't really know her personally, other than getting to hear her doing her storytelling. I never got to really personally sit down and talk with her.
Right.
But she was just an amazing. She's like having a second grandmother. You know, you didn't even really have to know her to just fall in love with that woman.
Yeah, she was probably a good storyteller.
Oh yeah, I've heard her tell the stories, and even when I was a kid, I loved her stuff. And we used to laugh at her accent when she'd talk. And
was she a Southern gal?
She was a Southern gal. She said, "We'll go to church and worship there." And we loved that woman. And, you know, you could just meet her one time and just fall in love with her. She just was charming. That's the word I was going to look for. Charming.
She's a charming Southern girl.
A charming Southern lady. She loved everybody.
Well, I got a few more things to share. We'll get on with Shadow People, but
yeah, I got another thing.
This is a picture I took again up on Simmons Mountain. We're going back probably 15 years ago. So, what do you think when you see something like that?
That's weird. That looks like, first thing that came out of my mind is that little, wispy, smoky looking thing. It looks like somebody from the waist up, somebody hanging upside down with their arms hanging. You even see almost like a hanging.
You know what it looks like to me?
What's it look like?
A horse's head.
A horse's head. Let's see here. You know what? Yeah.
You look down the snout. There's no body to it, just the head.
Yeah, I see it. I see yes, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you see the ear up there, kind of blended in with the branch there in top.
So I don't know if there's a horse that died up there or not, but that's the pictures I'm showing here are pictures I took.
Oh wow! And where was that at?
Up on Simmons Mountain, up in Odenville, Alabama.
Odenville, yeah.
Out in the woods, out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, that's crazy.
But that to me looked like a horse's head.
Yeah, that does. Now that I'm looking at it,
see them two bug eyes.
Yeah, and that mouth is very defined. The snout and the mouth, the horse's mouth, and the neck coming up, and it just kind of ends at the end of the neck there.
Kind of like it just peeking through the woods there, through the bushes, you know.
Yeah, it's peeking out from another dimension.
Another dimension. Like I said, now up in the Springville, Alabama area, a lot of interesting things goes on up there, and it was interesting because our other author friend had a hard time finding stories from St. Clair County. But I have talked about this, and this is a picture that I took. I've also got a video. Do you know what I'm talking about here?
I mean, let's see. That's that grave next to the. Yeah, you talked about that before.
Mm-hmm. Right next to the road.
Yeah, right next to the road.
Yeah. So way back before it's Highway 11, Gadsden Highway. Supposedly, way back before this was a paved road, it was just kind of like a trail that went down through there, horse and buggy and all that. Way before cars and whatnot. This guy, I guess, was a traveling salesman, and they're not sure exactly how he died. Whether I don't think somebody killed him. I think a wild animal got him, from the story I remember. And back then, if they didn't have a way to contact your family, or if you wasn't in the area, a lot of times they just bury you wherever you drop. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so when they paved and really did Highway 11, Gadsden Highway up there, they left his grave right there, side of the road.
Oh.
Now where it is, it's like, that's been a long time ago. I don't know exactly when they built that highway, but it looks like to me that slowly and surely that ground is eroding away, and that casket's going to be rearing its head before it's over with. But it's still there. That is just to the north. In fact, I'm looking back towards Springville from that picture there. Follow that road, you're going back towards Springville. So if you're going away from Springville, I think it's about 5 or so miles outside of Springville, headed up north. And coming from Springville to going north, it would be on your left. This is going the other direction, and where it's on the right. And there's a curve right behind me. When you're driving, and if that grass is trimmed, it almost gives the illusion of that grave being in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
So let's go back up. One more thing I'll show here, and these are photos on my website. That these are not borrowed. These are our photos from things we've done over the years. This, and you'll see I've got that watermark there. The website is alabamaghosttours.com. The Natural Bridge, if you're familiar with, up toward Bankhead Forest. I did a wedding up there at Natural Bridge, and they've got a little gift shop. So waiting on the couple to arrive, and just going around snapping pictures, and didn't really pay attention. But that's just those silverware they'd made a wind chime out of. And clearly you can see the devil's face. It looks like that.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So that's
Natural Bridge.
And you can see it's just old silverware. That, number one, when you're looking at that outside the camera, it was the same color as the rest of those utensils hanging there. It was just done kind of like a wind chime. But when you looked at the camera where it took the picture, bam, there's another one. I don't know where it is, but there were 2 different ones. And she was going around just click, 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 taking pictures, So that's part Blount County, part St. Clair County. There's all kind of interesting things. You don't, the first shadow figure that I saw in my life, I was a preteen. I lived, my family up in Athens, Alabama, and I was over at my grandmother's house, my mother's house, and back of the house was a little bitty room, a twin bed that I would sleep in. And I woke up one night, and you've seen pictures of the Shadow Man where he's got on the hat.
Yeah, I've seen some.
I don't know if they call it the Hat Man. I forget what, But that's what I saw outside my window. And I, as a little kid, I just froze. But 60 years ago, and I still remember that very clearly. but that was, so I've had more than one experience with a shadow figure. And I'm not in any of these cases, unlike that description that was given on the internet. To me, it was not something in the peripheral. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't something that just fleeting image. It was something that was there. I'm not saying that it stayed there long, but it was more than just a flash, and it was more than just in my peripheral vision. So, have you ever had such an experience?
Me personally, no, I haven't really had a shadow person experience yet. I don't know why. Maybe they're scared of me.
Ghost hunter. Jesus.
Well, maybe they're scared of me. They say, "Oh, get away from that Killer Kane." The ones the ones that come to me, they're not afraid to show themselves. They'll show what they look like. They don't hide in the shadow.
Well, that is,
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
interesting.
Yeah, because that wall is a solid color. There's some kind of clothing hanging there in a hook going into the bathroom, and that which looks like a witch's hat is not part of the shadow.
Yeah, that's a
Some,
thing on the wall.
some things she's got on the wall there, and that in the other pictures that shadow right there was not there, and it looks almost like it's somebody at the same side of the bed where she said she would see that,
Yeah.
and it should wake up, and if it's like sleep paralyzed, and and I just took seveal pictures, and bam, that right there.
Bam.
Bam,
Bam.
man.
There it was. There it was.
I like the old Batman show. Pow.
Bam. Boom. Kazoo. Ah, bam. Holy Toledo, Batman.
So did you find any good shadow people stories?
Yeah, I've got one here that I found on liveabout.com. And atop the article, this is interesting too, is 3 types of encounters you might have with the shadow people. It says here, most encounters with shadow people, those smoky person-shaped entities that move around in the dark, are fleeting glimpses. They are seen out of the corner of your eye, swiftly passing across a wall or ducking around a corner. You may wonder if the rational explanation for these quick glimpses are that they are imagined or just ordinary shadows of some kind. Maybe they're real, maybe they're not. We need some spooky music here in the background. Another type of shadow person encounter, a close encounter of the second kind, to borrow J. Allen Hynek's UFO classification, is rarer and more compelling. The witness sees the shadow entity for an extended period, not merely a passing glance. It could be for half a minute, a few minutes, or even more. The witness can often also detect human-like movement, the raising of an arm, the turn of a head, or walking. The witness gets a pretty good look at the thing and is able to describe it in some detail. Very often, these detailed descriptions compel the witness to ascribe an intelligence to the specter. It's not just a shadow. It seems to be an entity that moves and even reacts with purpose. A shadow person encounter of the third kind is even more rare. Contact. In this case, the witness actually is touched or is otherwise affected physically by the entity. And now here's a shadow man encounter. Michael W. tells of his close encounter in the fall. Hey, Captain Marie.
Been a while.
Yeah, it is.
How y'all doing?
We're doing fine. How are you doing?
Doing well.
Okay, well, that's good. I was just about to share this here Shadow Man story.
All right, go ahead.
Says this happened in the fall of 1998. It has many typical characteristics, including that his perceptions happened when he awoke during the night. He had just purchased a home and spent the day painting it before moving in. His friends left for the night, but he decided to sleep in a beanbag chair. He awoke in the middle of the night feeling thirsty and went into the dark kitchen for a glass of water. Quote, that's when I got a distinct feeling that someone was watching me. There at the top of the basement stairs in front of the light switch, I could distinctly make out the figure of what I automatically assumed was my good friend Larry. He called out to the figure, which didn't respond. Quote, I was still absolutely convinced that I was looking at a living person. My guard went up with the dangerous possibilities of who it could be. I took out my pocket knife in case I needed to defend myself. Then in an instant, the shadow moved forward in my direction. I lunged forward with the knife extended outward. I saw the shadow move into my arm as if deliberately trying to impale itself on my weapon, and it kept on coming. He screamed, and the entity continued straight through his body. Quote, I spun around in a circular motion 180 degrees. I saw the shadow moving at an almost leisurely pace away from me. It proceeded through the large kitchen into the adjoining dining room and finally through the wall that would have led outside if it were a door. He finally turned on the light switch, wide awake now, and searched the house, found nothing, and evacuated to his old apartment for the rest of the night. He never had a repeat of that encounter while living in the house. Of note, he said he wondered whether he was thirsty due to the paint fumes. A rational explanation would be that those could have been an influence, as well as an episode of a hallucination associated with sleep paralysis. He wondered if it might be associated with the address ending in 666 and that the house was aligned with magnetic north. That's a good story right there. And I got another one here with a picture. This picture has gotten pretty dang famous here. I'm going to share it in just a second. Oh, wait a minute. What in the world was that? Something's climbing out of the TV. But I have a... You silly. Scared me to death.
I thought that's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah. I got another story here with this crazy, what looks like a shadow. To me, it looks like a shadow person type thing. And this story, the picture, it says, has been shrouded in mystery for years now, and it is probably the most peculiar ghost caught on camera. The story goes back to the mid-1950s, taking place in Texas. The Cooper family had just moved into an old house that they bought and were really excited about it. So they thought of preserving this memory by taking a picture of the whole family in their new home. But little did they know that there was someone else joining in on their celebration. A spooky figure hanging upside down from the ceiling. And I'm going to share that right now. Where's that booger at? There it is. Here we come. Aha! It says there are perhaps other stories that state an actual body did fall off from the ceiling exactly at the time the photograph was being taken, but why the face of the body remains darkened is another mystery. A faceless body or a paranormal activity? Who knows which one it is? So nobody knows the name of the family, well, the Cooper family, but they don't know, their first names or exactly where this was located or anything else about the photo. But that is one creepy booger out there hanging down out of the ceiling. Looks like it's wearing a shirt. That's the first time I've seen a shadow person wearing clothes. But
that is, well, they've even seen a Bigfoot wearing a shirt.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But that is, I've seen that picture before, and his head and hands look really weird.
Yeah.
Like
this is an old, yeah, this is an old black and white photo back when they didn't have Photoshop or computers or anything like that to easily take this.
I wonder if the room is lit solely with those candles, if there's other lighting in there.
I don't know. It looks like there's some kind of flash on the camera, just going by that big ball of flash on the wall behind them.
Wow.
I wonder about that thing.
Yeah, I've seen it before, yeah.
And another mystery. Where the hell did Catherine go? She appeared?
She's at a that place where she takes care of, it's a holiday and there's some kids that are put in a place, They're on 26 Family Connections.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know. I wonder what y'all talking about when you said youth home. I didn't know.
Yeah. No, it's not for her because she's not a youth. I'm sorry. Not a youth. So there's a difference. Shadow figure and what do they call the other one? The Hat Man. See, I saw the Hat Man when I was a kid. That was the first shadow figure I remember seeing. And I didn't have sleep paralysis. I remember that very distinctly to this day, and that's been 60 years ago. And it was outside my window, and it had on a fedora hat, and just a dark outline, distinctly the hat, the face, and and
Yeah.
I was wide awake. It wasn't, in fact, I froze, but it wasn't sleep. I froze because I was scared, not because my body locked up, like sleep paralysis. But I remember that very well. That was the first real profound experience I'd ever had in my life. And it was pre-teens. It had to be like I was 6, 7 years old, somewhere around in there.
It looks like they've made a movie about it. Here's a picture of the Hat Man, documented cases of pure evil.
Evil.
Ooh.
Evil. And it wasn't in a dream. See, what I'm looking at here, they keep talking about sleep paralysis and a dream and that kind of stuff. That wasn't the way it was for me. Tales of things that go bump in the night are often met with skepticism, but one nightmarish figure keeps cropping up in reports from all over the world. Numerous people claim to have woken in the dark to find a shadowy figure dubbed the Hat Man looming over them. In my case, the Hat Man was there, but it was right outside my bedroom window. It was not looming over me. Thank God. The phenomenon has attracted widespread attention, inspiring documentaries on the subject, and the launch of a dedicated blog, the Harmon Project. No, the Hat Man Project. I hate it when they put this writing on total black background, and it's, where people can share their experiences. Why don't you look up that the Hat Man Project?
The Hat Man Project.
Yeah, supposed to be a lot of stories on there. It's not a new phenomenon. For about as long as written records have existed, well, in my case, my experience with the Hat Man was 60 years ago, thereabouts. People have described a frightening nighttime vision that paralyzes them with fear. I guess I was paralyzed with fear, and seems to suck the breath right out of them, often by pressing directly upon their chest. I didn't have that part of it. The entity has stalked human beings throughout history, not merely within a particular society or during a specific time, says Shelby Adler in her book Sleep Paralysis, Nightmares. Among the Canadian Inuit, the word, which I can't even hardly see on the screen, describe this awake but paralyzed feeling, while the Japanese call it yet another word I can't pronounce. In the field of sleep research, this experience is termed sleep paralysis. And I'm going to stop that there because, to me, I never had what I would call sleep paralysis in relation to Shadow Man or Hat Man. I've had all kinds of experiences in my life, and I'm a skeptic. I'm a born skeptic. I ask a lot of questions. I don't take things at face value. But the stories that I end up sharing are stories that I can't explain, that I can't find answers to. I don't share stories that I think I have debunked my own experiences, if you will. I don't spend a lot of time worried about debunking other people's stories. Sometimes I will comment when it's just obvious. It's, if they ask my opinion, I'll give it. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
But I don't spend a lot of time going through other people's material trying to say that looks real, that don't look real. You and I have done that on one show, which is fair because of what we're doing. But but I will. When I have an experience, I will work hard to debunk my own experience.
Yeah,
You find something
I like to try to find natural reasoning too. But yeah, I did pull up that Hat Man project. There's some stories people are sharing on this guy's website. Here's one that
any of them
any what?
any of them sound credible?
I don't know. This one I started to look at it. It's called "He Looked Blacker Than Night. I Could Feel the Evil," and it's supposed to be true.
That's exactly what that couple said about what happened to them yesterday. That the night was already dark because of where they were at. The sky was totally cloudy, and this entity that they saw was darker than night, literally.
Okay, yeah. This says I was 23 when I. This says I was 23 when I saw what I think experienced. I saw and experienced what I think people call the Hat Man. It was by far the most terrifying experience of my life. First, let me say it was early morning and still dark. My mother and I are both nurses, so working a day shift, we left early for work before daylight. I was staying with my mom to save up money. Single mom worries. My mother would drop my 5-year-old son off to daycare for me because it was on her way to work. We lived on 5 acres. Oh, that's like me. With large lights on wooden poles throughout the property that turned on by a timer. It gave a sense of protection because it would get really dark. But this illusion was dispelled instantly that morning. Walking to our vehicles, I noticed a man standing under one of the lights closest to the house. I couldn't see his clothes per se, but their outlines. He didn't have a trench coat. It looked to be mid-thigh Victorian era, coat tapered. He had on boots from what the outline suggested, a stove hat, and he was looking at a watch on a chain. He didn't cast a shadow of his own. He was black as night. It's amazing the things that go through your head when something like this is happening. I could feel the evil coming off him in waves. It was almost like my adrenaline was about to make my heart explode. I was so terrified I actually felt my eyes dilate. I began screaming at my mother to put my son in the car and just go. Go right now. Not my usual habit. Plus, they couldn't see or feel what I was feeling. My mother kept yelling, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" I walked back to her car and put my son in the seat and literally forced my mom into leaving without me. I can't see it smiling, but I can, if that makes sense. It made me sick to my stomach. We had a 500-foot long driveway that led to a dirt road, very isolated. I didn't get in my car and follow my mother and son until they were at the end. I had to make sure it would not follow them. I just looked straight at it, my heart running 10,000 miles. I left finally to find my mother waiting for me at the end of the dirt road to the highway. Bewildered, I made her leave and called her from my cell to explain why I had acted like a crazy person. Strangely, she believed me. I don't think it was used to my reaction. I had to protect my family, even though I knew it was there for me. I don't know how I knew this, I just did. I hope to never feel that type of intense fear again, ever. I've met my quota in spades. Now, that's an interesting story. And that reminds me, now that I think of it, I actually have had the shadow people experience. And I can't believe I forgot all about that when I was a little kid living out there in West Jefferson, that haunted house I grew up in.
So you're saying a group of
I
people?
used to lay in bed. Yeah, it was shadows in a series. When I was probably 5 years old. I wasn't a car. Not this. I would lay there in my bed, and we had this tall window there at the end of the bedroom, and the street lamp from the circle. It wasn't this was a dead end. We had a circle out there, so you couldn't travel through. You had to turn around and go back out. But the street light was on, and that glow would show through. And on my wall, I would see what looked like, I would think of it as like a lit up checkerboard. It was the window had a series of panes, like a tic tac toe board, and that would reflect in the light on the window. So I'd lay there and stare at that reflection on the wall. I meant to say it reflects on the wall with the light shining through. So I would lay there in my bed and stare at the wall and drift off to sleep at night. One night I'm laying there looking, I start seeing a shifting there. It's like little figures running past in the reflection there. So I look at the window to see if there's somebody outside going by, and there's nothing there. No branches or anything out there. There's no trees near that window. I look back at the wall, and there's those little shadows running by. And I remember that it looked like Indians, because he saw what looked like some kind of hat with feathers on it sitting up on its head. And we did have Cherokee Indian burial ground out there, Cherokee Indian territory out there. We'd find arrowheads and broken pottery, stuff like that, out there in the dirt in the woods. Mm-hmm. So I wondered if that was maybe the ghosts of some of those Indians marching by the window out there. I couldn't see them out the window, but I could see their shadow and that reflection going by, in that glow on the wall, their little outline.
They were circling the wagons.
Yeah.
Circling the
wagon.
Our house. I wanted to show you another photograph real quick as we go through these stories. This isn't a shadow person, but it's a pretty interesting picture.
Now, let's see. Yeah, it looks like something there. Yeah. Yeah, that looks like a little girl standing on the step.
And there's actually, to me, looks like three figures in there. One, and then one over here by itself, walking either up or down the steps by itself.
Yeah.
You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so.
Now, here's the story behind that. This was a tour group at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado where Stephen King wrote The Shining.
Yeah.
They took a picture of the stairs where other paranormal photos have been taken before, and they captured this really creepy image of what looks to be, just like you said, a girl standing there, a girl who wasn't on the tour. There's an FBI guy that is a Photoshop expert who deals with fake photos, said he found no evidence of tampering. And coming up the stairs, there's another suspicious character behind the woman in blur motion. You can only see a half of him or her, and that person wasn't on the tour either. So you can capture stuff, and a lot of times you're capturing things unexpectedly. That's not quite a shadow figure, but it is some kind of weird looking figure.
Yeah.
The very strong entity is the one closest to us here on those steps. And it's, again, one of those oddly shaped figures, but this, I got to tell you, looks more real and credible than that one shadow figure you showed with the flat head.
Yeah, the Jeffrey.
Yeah, but that's at the Stanley Hotel, and of course you're familiar with the Stanley Hotel out in Colorado. So very famous. So given that, there's different theories as to what shadow, or the shadow hat man in particular, is. Some people say a demon, or somebody else could say a negative energy in someone's life. But the question remains, who is he, and from where, and why is he here? Some people theorize the shadow hat man is a type of being or entity who likes to just scare people and then feed off their energy as a source of food, if you will, kind of like what you've heard of a psychic vampire, except this is coming from some entity that's not human. There's others. There's one psychic on YouTube by the name of Gigi that talks about her experience of interacting with and seeing where the Shadow Hat Man came from through a hypnosis session. The Shadow Hat Man kept visiting her room all the time, and through her hypnosis session, she saw where he was coming from by following him with remote viewing of this show before. She found he was from a early, was distinctively remembered the place had a sense of sadness and loneliness. And on the coffee table, she saw a manila folder that said Watchers. She suspected that her particular Shadow Hat Man was someone who was involved in a government program where psychics were being trained to do remote viewing, which we know that's true. The government was involved in that sort of thing. I thought that was very interesting because it's the first time I've ever heard anybody talk about their version of a Shadow Hat Man being a time traveler, if it were. Interdimensional beings. There's, I had that experience that I told in the Walmart parking lot where I bumped into somebody that in Nashville that bumped into me at the same time in Carolina. Remember that story?
Yeah.
So when you put all this together, it's like it leaves a lot of questions and little answers, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So what
This.
What else you got there, bud?
Look at these strange photos out here on this Hat Man project. Somebody submitted a couple of photos, but there's no story. It just says a frequent reader of our site recently submitted a series of images that claim to be of the Hat Man himself. I'm including these pictures for your viewing. So what do you think? Are these pictures none other than the Hat Man himself or perhaps another shadow being? Let me go ahead and show these. Here's the first one.
Are you going to show them?
Yeah, if I can get this to work. All of a sudden, my clicker ain't
the Hat Man doesn't want to show his picture.
Oh, this is weird. I can't even get this thing to.
Okay, so here is the shadow people are a reflection of our negative selves.
Oh, I see.
And is this Bulldozer? Are you from Australia? Are you the guy from Australia? He's on. I think he's from Australia.
Yeah. But here's those. I got it working now. These photos that they put up on the side. There's one that looks like, I don't know if it's outside, but you can see some kind of an evil-looking white face there staring back.
Okay, first of all, I just want to welcome. I want to welcome Bulldozer real quick. He's from Australia.
Okay.
And I think he has now in his possession one of my wishing machines, and he's been a loyal watcher and follower of us on Facebook and so forth. So welcome. If you got any input, and if you'd like to ever be on the show and talk about anything, experiences you've had, just let me know. I'll send you a link, and you can come on and join us. They'd probably rather look at you than me anyway. Go ahead, Kevin.
There's that photo that looks like a face there staring back with kind of a mean look. And then the second photo.
Now, what is it? Is that like in the bushes or something? What was that picture in?
I don't know. It doesn't say.
It's outdoor. It's very strange, but I see the face in the middle of it.
Yeah, and this one looks like it's tilted his head back, and there's you can see the nose and the mouth open like it's almost kind of laughing. I mean, that's really bizarre. I don't know if these are fake. I mean, there's absolutely no story of where, when, why, how. It just says that the photos were shared with the website. So it's interesting.
it's not a matter of discrediting. It's just that there's not much to the picture. There's you don't know where it was taken. Just by looking at the picture, it's hard to say anything about it.
Yeah, I don't know if that's inside a house, outside. I mean, the story would have been good to go with that. Okay, I'm trying to get back here to the main.
So anybody that's watching this, or even anybody that comes in and watches this later, share if you've seen a shadow man, tell us about it. Put it down in the comments section. Even if we don't get it during the show, if it's later in the week and you see this, and we will talk about it later. Yeah. But share your stories. We like to hear this.
Here's a story called "The Most Terrifying Experience I've Ever Had." It was the most terrifying experience I've ever had. I was always fascinated with ghost stories, horror films, mysteries, even strong spiritual connections. I can honestly say I'd never truly believed in ghosts, though. There was always too much of a question there. If you ever have an experience like this, you'll never question again, as it opens up all kinds of doorways of thoughts on the supernatural. In my house, a 1970s Southern home, I have felt a presence before. It often is negative, but has also been angelic after my mother passed. There were little things that happened when me and my sister were young. We shared a room together. I had seen a wolf-like creature standing by her nightstand with neon green glowing eyes. And another time she saw an angel watching me as I slept. Those visions faded with time and age. One night, just a few years ago now, I had fallen asleep in my bedroom. I felt something was watching me. My eyes flew open, and standing near the foot of my bed, kind of at the side, was a man. He had beady, piercing black eyes. He was old but had no wrinkles, white hair and a white short beard. He wore what appeared to be a black trench coat and a rounded, long brim Amish-looking hat or sharp-brimmed vintage fedora. His look was dull, stoic, slightly sad, intrigued somehow by me, menacing because of it. I got the feeling he had been there before. After several good seconds of realizing this was in fact real, I let out a blood-curdling scream. I ran up the back of the bed and against the wall, and he vanished before me. I turned on the night lamp and grabbed my phone, went outside my room and called my sister. What is curious is that my mother passed a year later in the same month. I often think he was a foreteller of doom, or just a curious entity that wants something but is unsure how to attain it. It helps to know other people have seen this man. I would like to talk to someone who actually saw this pale man's direct face, because very few I have read saw him at such close range. I can still see him right now in my mind. That was a Hat Man story there.
Yeah. So I guess the difference between a shadow figure and a Hat Man is, of course, the Hat Man has on a hat. I guess that's the only. I mean, it doesn't seem to indicate anything different, does it?
No, not really.
I mean, the Hat Man is a shadow figure with a hat.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's a man, and of course, shadow figures does not have to be a man, I guess. I mean, it's just like this picture. You can't tell whether it's male, female, whatever, but it is clearly a shadow figure.
Yeah.
And then the ones you showed, that site, which is called the Hat Man Project, if anybody wants to go to this, I think it's hatmanproject.com. And there's a lot of stories there, but also on that, the pictures are very interesting, to say the least. But what is interesting, you can't tell. I mean, that looks like almost the face of a man. But then if you look at it, you step away, it almost looks like it could be the Mothman with a man's head. You see the
Yeah.
kind of wings going to the right and then about stick body kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You follow me? So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Now, this one is even harder to figure out to me.
It looks like almost like a clown face, kind of going back, going like that.
Yeah, I don't know. That one's, this one. But what I don't like about either of those pictures, you can't tell where you are. It's just a dark
No,
background, and
there's
so that kind of leaves a lot more to the imagination than. And you said where you got the pictures, there's no backstory to it.
no, they didn't put. He just said apparently the person just submitted the photos to his website there at Hatman Project and didn't give the story.
Huh. Well, there's some people that think that these are beings that are interdimensional or extraterrestrial species that disguise themselves. And the reason they might look like a person with a trench coat and a hat is possibly because when and how they stumbled upon us in our dimension. They saw our outfits during the time of the 50s and 60s style, when a lot of men wore the fedora hats and whatnot, and the trench coats, whatever. There's a chance that if that happened, that they thought, "Oh, this is what these humans wear," so that's what we're going to use so we fit in.
Put on my classic hat here. Let's see here.
There you go. Absolutely, get it on. I wore a different hat tonight. Some may actually try to study the human race, or may try to get a rise out of us, similar to the movie Monsters Inc., where the cartoon monsters feed off the children's screams when they get scared. So it could be something like that. So again, there's different theories on it. We don't understand these beings. It's all guesswork. If you've had a lot of experience, I don't know. Some people claim they would have spent a lot of time investigating. I've never gone out just to investigate, shadow figures or Hatman or whatever, Usually paranormal researchers are going for that ghost thing, and then you've got Bigfoot hunters, and then you actually got UFO hunters. But I've never heard of Hatman hunters or Shadow Man. I guess there could be. I just hadn't heard of them. Sounds like that that lady that you were talking about with 13 ghosts, that she just had one that kind of held on to her.
Yeah. Oh, she enjoyed him after a while. She wasn't ever scared of him. She liked to blame everything on him.
Was she married or single?
Well, her husband had died before those events took place, and she didn't remarry.
She never remarried.
Never remarried.
And I'm sure you've told this, and I missed it somewhere. But was Jeffrey her husband's name?
No, I can't remember her husband's name, but it definitely wasn't Jeffrey. I know that.
Okay. So she wasn't trying to say this shadow person was her husband.
No, I don't know. I don't know if anybody ever gave her that. I would have loved to have asked her about that. Do you think that could have been your husband paying you visits? But I've never heard anybody ask her that or heard that idea being suggested. But one of her kids came up with the name Jeffrey. I don't know where they got that from.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting.
Hey, I found a page here.
You found what?
I found a page here with 10 creepy real-life encounters with shadow people.
Okay. Oh, real quick before you go into the 10 creepy shadow figure things, it's top of the hour, and this is Abnormal Alabama, and we always like to do a little self-promotion stuff as we go along. And first of all, there's a book called The Shadownomicon. Explains how to use their inner. I've got to look at that. Shadownomicon. I'm going to look that up while you're telling your stories in a minute.
Okay.
Abnormal Alabama, we simultaneously live stream this on YouTube as well as on Facebook. where we have people on both places watching us now. And we do this every Tuesday night between 7 and 9 Central Daylight Time here in Central Alabama. Kevin and I were coming up on a 2-year anniversary here in a short couple of 3 months. I forget exactly what date we started this. Was it March? It was short convention.
Yeah, it was March. So yeah.
So we're just getting very short. We'll have to get a bottle of champagne and that's a cigar. So this has been very consistent. We've had a lot of interesting guests. We've told a lot of interesting stories. I've written several books, but I've only got one book that is along the lines of kind of what we're talking about, and that's up in the corner there, Dating the Dead, datingthedead.com. I think that Kevin deleted my picture of my book, is what it is.
Oh, I hope I didn't.
I'm thinking
I haven't deleted. Oh,
it's not there, but that's cool. But datingthedead.com, and it's a very interesting book. All of our books, in fact, including Kevin's, you can buy them off of the website, datingthedead.com. You can Google our names on Google. Go to Amazon.com and do within Amazon, search our name, and you will find our books. Kevin, I think, now got 13 books, Kevin?
Yeah, 13 books.
Celebrate because your lady did 13 ghosts and you've done 13 books. There's something going on there.
Yeah.
Ooh. So Kevin's is myhauntedDolls.com. In this house that he's in right here, which I have visited. We used to do this in person, but then COVID-19 came along, and I was scared that Kevin would give me coronavirus, so I said, nope, no more. But now we don't have to go anywhere. We do this like a lot of people are doing. But Kevin's house is full of haunted dolls. Everywhere you look, except the part of the house that his father lives in. And his father says, no, Kevin, no dolls on my side of the house.
Yeah, that's what he said. Not in his room, anyway.
So tell about your books real quick and about, self-promote, the bottom line. We do some self-promoting. One other thing before he gets started. Take him a minute to warm up here, but here we go. Look at this. The Wishing Machine, the WishDoctorDR.com or drkelsey.wishmaker.com. Either one will take you to the website. I have now literally sent these machines, and I've got 3 different versions of it. Right now, I've got a special going on for the holiday New Year. It's been a very negative year for a lot of people, and it's hurt a lot of people real bad in illness. Some have died. It's affected the way people work, and some people have lost their work because of it, especially in different restaurants and bars and that sort of thing. So this is, I call it the law of attraction on steroids. And you go check it out. I got a lot of videos on that. And I've also got the website. I have sent these machines to Canada. I've sent them to Germany. I've sent them to Australia, all across the United States, Alaska, you name it, and gotten very good feedback on it. So there's my little promotion. And now, Kevin, it's time for you to self-promote.
Okay. Well, let me throw up my book here. Let's see here. My newest book, My Haunted Collection, The Dark Side, which tells the stories of some of the darker items in my collection. This is out. Just came out a week ago. It's on myhauntedDolls.com if you go over there. And it's got here. I'll go ahead and take that off so you can see the creepy girl's face there. That's one of the, probably the most evil doll I've had in my collection right there. Look how sweet she looks there on the cover of that book. But she is not sweet. Don't let that fool you.
Far from that, sweetie.
I had to bless the hell out of her.
You had to bless her out.
And had to bless the hell out of her. And she is sealed up. So, but that looks can be deceiving is the lesson there. But her story and others are included there, including a doll that was pulled from a murder house in West Jefferson County, and a Jack-in-the-Box clown who loves to pinch people, and a voodoo doll, all kinds of things in that book. So go ahead and check that out at myhauntedDolls.com for autographed copies. It's on Kindle. Amazon should be on BooksAMillion.com shortly, I hope. I'm still waiting on that to hit. But check that out. And the original book, My Haunted Dolls, which tells about the first dozen or so items I collected back in 2014 and got me started on the path of this eerie passion of mine.
Strange.
Strange.
That's not the cover I use on the book now, but that is Dating the Dead. Sorry about that. I just found that.
That's okay. And there's my novel that's still sitting out there. Crimson the Blood painting. It's a novel based on an actual painting you see there on the cover of the book. That came from Salem, Massachusetts.
He chose that name because in Alabama it's called clickbait.
Nah.
And it's strange that he did that because he's really an Auburn fan.
No, I'm not. Roll Tide. Roll Tide. This book is on audiobook. If you like listening to books and you're traveling this Christmas, that'd be a good book there. It's on Audible and Amazon and I believe iTunes. So go out there and purchase that book. You won't be disappointed. It's voiced by a lovely voice actress by the name of Lynn Thomas. She does a wonderful job. So check that out.
And if you buy any of his books, audio, Kindle, or paperback, if you get the paperback version, go to his website. He'll autograph it for you. And
yes, myhauntedDolls.com.
That's it. And keep in mind, he said that you'll be disappointed. That it may be true, but even more so, he will not be disappointed if you do that.
Yes, will not be disappointed.
Now, I think that, Kevin, you found a place where you got about 10 or so spooky stories of shadow people you want to share. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, and these aren't lengthy. These are 10 quick stories of creepiest encounters, real-life encounters with shadow people. And what I love is that they use the screen names of these people who submitted them. So you'll hear these weird names. And we don't know if it's a he or she, so they're just referred to as they and them. So number one, Sniggity, there's a good screen name. Sniggity encountered shadow people on 3 separate occasions. The first time, they caught one looking through their bedroom window before disappearing. The second was a few months later when they woke up to find shadow people lurking aimlessly around their bedroom. The third and final time was late at a summer camp. They were laying in bed in their bungalow when shadowy figures appeared and began walking in circles around the bed. In all 3 occasions, the figures were pitch black, darker than the dimly lit room. This user has experienced all they want from shadow people and hopes to never encounter one again. Then number 2, Anathium has had a few encounters with shadow people, but there is only one that truly terrified them. On a summer evening, they stayed up late watching television with their sister. As they got up to go to bed, they passed by the front door and saw a Native American standing in the frame. He stood at least 6'5", wore a black suit with an old-fashioned top hat, and had long hair and sharp blue eyes. The user screamed, making their sister jump up and impulsively throw a salt shaker at the figure. The shadow person's face fell into what seemed like a sorrowful expression, then shimmered away through the front door. Later, when describing the experience to their father, he said the shadow person sounded like a description of his great uncle who died when he was young. Then number 3, when Isophi was 5 or 6, they went into their backyard to play on their trampoline and saw 3 men. They were standing side by side, these 3 men, wearing matching hats and were pitch black. Now, as soon as I said that, my screen went black. That's creepy. Okay, here we go. Okay. So they yelled at the creepy figures to get off. Their parents heard the shouts and raced downstairs. To this day, the parents recall how frightened their kid was. Isophi told their parents that there were 3 people on the trampoline, but when they looked back, the shadow people had vanished. They didn't step on the trampoline for 2 years, but this did not end. Their grandma described waking to a dark figure standing above her many times at their old house. One night, their mother woke and saw a similar figure standing over their dad. They've moved houses since, but the shadow people seem to have followed. All right, number 4. After a poor night of sleep, Lostful Codex laid down midday to take a nap. They recall a strange feeling in their head, but believed it to be a side effect of sleep deprivation. Then from the corner of their room, they heard South Park, as if there was a television sitting right beside their bed, although there wasn't. A ringing and high-pitched whooshing sound joined in the chorus. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't lift their arms or head. Then they heard a knock at the window. Behind the glass pane crouched a dark, faceless figure. A second figure of identical stature entered through the bedroom door and sat at the edge of the bed. The shadow person spoke. "I would be afraid too. This is what nightmares are made from." Lostful Codex was confident that it was a dream, but it seemed inescapable. The room faded in and out, and then the user awoke. It was easily the scariest experience they'd ever had with lucid dreaming. All right, number 5. McWeirdo 42's earliest memory involves a shadow person. They were 2 or 3 years old at the time and recall waking to a dark shadow on the wall beside their crib, a shadow with bright white eyes. It moved toward them. They moved to the other side of the crib, but another shadow person was approaching from that side as well. Neither creature had any form that could easily be discerned. They were just pitch black against an already shadowed wall. With nowhere to go, the user crouched in the center of the crib. The parents recall McWeirdo 42 telling them the shadows were trying to get them. That's creepy. All right, number 6. At 3 a.m. one morning, Vosenau woke and went to the kitchen to get some water. On his way, he stumbled upon a shadow person sitting in the recliner in the family room. He had been seeing shadow people his entire life, so this sudden appearance was not startling. He stood still for a couple of minutes to be certain it was indeed a shadow person. As his eyes adjusted to the dark, it became clearer. A shadow person was sitting in the living room staring at them. He started moving toward it. The figure seemed undaunted. When he was 3 feet apart, the shadow person evaporated. All right, number 7. In 6th grade, so says Kluziver attended a barbecue at a local park. After a day of playing with his classmates, it was time to head home. The older kids, including this Reddit user, was tasked with collecting the younger kids and getting them ready to leave. The park wasn't that big, so finding all the kids proved easy, but then things took a turn toward the paranormal. About halfway across the park, he saw a shadow figure of what appeared to be a toddling small child. Thinking it was one of the kids he was looking for, the user and his friend ran after the shadow, yelling at it to stop. When the figure reached the edge of the park, it turned white, dropped to all fours, ran up the tree like a cat, and leaped over the wall. The user and his friend ran away terrified, unsure of exactly what they saw. And number 8, one night when Mr. Tibbles 32 was 5 and he was trying to fall asleep, a shadow person appeared before the window. It seemed harmless, pacing back and forth in front of the window, appearing as if someone was just floating just outside the window, but the room was on the second floor, 20 feet off the ground. No living human could be outside that window. This continued to happen. Sometimes more than one would appear and the two shadow people would interact. The user didn't realize what they were seeing at the time. He just believed it to be a childish fantasy like seeing Peter Pan. It was only recently that he was able to pinpoint exactly what he'd seen, and it was no lost boy. All right, number 9. Pine Wolf 14 has encountered shadow people more than once. Often he'll hear them breathing or feel the shadow hovering over him while he's asleep. He's heard whispers saying, "Don't move," in the middle of the night. Wisely, the user never did move, but on the one night this changed. Instead of lying still, he rolled over and came face to face with a shadow person. If the two had been any closer, their foreheads would have been touching. He opened his mouth to scream, but there were hands around his throat, choking him. He started to thrash around, punching and kicking at the shadow person until suddenly the shadow person vanished. And then number 10, a few years ago, user Mistress of the Dark was sleeping over at a friend's house and had trouble sleeping. As she was lying awake, a tall, solid black silhouette entered the bedroom. It wore a top hat and a long coat and looked like a male figure. He sat in a chair beside the bed and stared at them. After a few seconds, he started talking. The user does not remember the conversation exactly, as the experience took place 5 years ago, but it was a harmless encounter and the shadow person seemed genuinely interested in her. Then a second shadow person appeared, the same black silhouette, but this time it was a woman. Strangely, she was crawling. The man sitting beside in the chair told her not to look, and the woman would not notice them. She was not a good entity. Shortly after, the woman left, and at dawn, the shadow man too vanished. And now I want to throw in a bonus. So this reminded me of something that I was told back around 2003 or 4. I was doing research on ghosts for my first book I was trying to write. And I was told by a woman who stayed in a hotel in California. I can't remember that woman's name and what the name of the hotel was, but the story was creepy. You don't have to know that to be creepy.
It had to be Hotel California.
Hotel California. But she and her husband had gone to sleep that night. I want to say this was in San Francisco, but she and her husband had gone to sleep one night. This is one of those older historical hotels. And she woke up around 3 o'clock in the morning and kind of sat up. She wasn't sure why she woke up. She got up and went to the bathroom and came back to bed and went to lay back down, and she heard some crying, some sobbing. So she's sitting on her bed and she looks over, and there's a chair in the corner of the room across there from the bed, and it's facing toward the bed. And there is the shadow of a man sitting there, big shoulders, and he's looking down, and she's like, well, "That's my husband." And she can't see his face, but she's pretty sure it sounds like a man crying, and he sounds concerned. He's got his hand up like this, but he's all in shadow, so she can't really make out his features. But she can hear him crying. She says, "Honey, what's wrong, honey?" And he doesn't answer her. He just keeps on weeping. Suddenly, she felt movement on the bed next to her. She looks over and sees her husband rolling over in the bed and just waking up, and he looks up at her and says, "Who are you talking to?" She went cold. and she's staring at him, and she slowly looked back at the chair, and this time the chair was empty. That was not her husband sitting there. She doesn't know who or what that was, but she thought she probably had encountered a ghost of the hotel. And she actually asked one of the workers there the next day. They said they'd had other guests say they'd had some creepy encounters with shadow figures in that hotel. Dang it, I wish I remember the name of it. But that's a good shadow story too to have there.
Well, the name don't matter. You got the story, right? Correct.
Yeah.
Waiting on someone who I think may join us here in a second. I just shared the link with them, and they may have a shadow man, hat man experience to share with us here in a moment.
Okay.
So,
because I'm talking raw here.
You need to get something to drink there, buddy?
I got something right there, buddy.
There you go. So, anyway, we're into about an hour and a half. We've been talking about mostly shadow people. And let's see, what's this one here?
There's my Robin.
Yeah, that's almost a shadow type. It's a inverted shadow. Is that what you call it?
I guess so. It's white instead of black.
So,
It's an albino shadow.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, I think we got Bruno is going to join us here. Hey, Bruno, how you doing?
Hello.
Can you hear us okay?
Hello.
We have Bruno from Australia. What town are you in Australia? Must have some kind of hesitation here. See if he hears you, Kevin.
Can you hear us, Bruno?
He's not muted. This is Bruno from Australia. I forget what town he's in. I sent him.
I think he's frozen. Yeah, there he goes. Yeah.
Okay.
I got it.
Let's see if he comes back here.
Okay.
Trying to get him on. He's all the way from Australia. We've had
it was daytime where he was.
Yes, yeah, a little bit of difference in time. I don't know what time it is over there. I guess he's gonna try it again. But he just shared with me. Where are we here? There you go, right here. And we're going to talk about that with him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He just said about a month ago. So that would be interesting. I hope that he can get back and let's give us another shot.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to hear that story. And after you and I talking for an hour and a half, it'd be refreshing to have another face and voice on here, huh?
Yeah.
You got some kind of technical difficulty. All the way from Australia, trying to get him on. He was on for a second, could hear him for a second, then he kind of froze. It looked like he was out like in a back porch, screened in porch or something there.
Yeah.
And maybe he had either a bad cell phone connection or a bad Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I got the Australia time. It's 1:28 p.m. or 1:29 p.m. there.
It's just barely after lunchtime over there.
Yeah. So yeah, it's 8:29 p.m. here, 1:29 p.m. there.
So we'll see if he's able to come back and join us. I hope so.
Yeah.
And I did appreciate. I did look for this book. This is a pretty new book here, and wow. And let me know because I'm gonna switch screens. Let me know if he comes back, and you can let him on.
Okay.
But I wanted to share. Where is this? The book he was talking about sounds interesting. I may want to read it myself. I found it on Amazon. Now I can't find it. I'm lost.
I got lost.
There we go. Because it gives me the contents here. It's called Shadownomicon, the Grimoire of the Shadow People, and it's pretty. I don't know how many pages in this book. It must be pretty thick because it's got a lot of chapters in it. You know, I need to get this guy. It's got his email here, so I should we should try to get him on and interview him. The Shadow, Current Shadows in History, The Dead Ends of Mythology, The Art Bell Show, The Hall of Fantasy Radio Show, The Brief Word of Lovecraft, Loose Ends, Testimony of D.H. Thorne, who I think is the author of the book, D.H. Thorne. Awakening, First Steps, Warriors of the Black Dawn. Sounds like Kevin's religion. Revelations and Madness, Narcissistic Acceptance, Isolation and Redemption, The Missing Wand, 30 Days with Azazel, and then Minding the Shadows. This is pretty interesting stuff. Appearance and General Behavior, Energy Vampires, Sleep Paralysis and Nightmares, Dysfunctional People and Tragedy, subtitle Kevin Kane. Oh, I'm sorry. Combating the Shadows, Carl Jung and the Shadow. And then we get into the Shadownomicon Grimoire, Breaking Your Dedication, Preparation of the Sanctuary Candle, Corruption of the Black Stone, the Ritual Dagger, and Dedication of the Mirror. And then it's got some rituals, the Communion ritual format, Offering of Darkness to the Shadow Current, Initiation with Legion, and then a Catalog of Shadows. They got a Catalog of Shadows there. So he never came back with us, so I don't know if he just not going to be able to get a connection. Oh, he's trying to message me over here. Let's see if he's going to be able to.
I hope so. We've talked to death now.
Oh, you and I, we always come up with something to talk about. But
Yeah.
we're really wanting to hear his story.
I was going to say, I was on a show, what was it, Friday night? I was on CJ Dunham's show.
Okay, he's going to try again. I just.
Oh, okay.
But go ahead and tell your story.
Yeah, I was on
I'll
CJ.
if I need to. Shut up.
Okay, of course you will. You always do. So, CJ Dunham, and she's got a wonderful show that comes. I think it was Friday night at 11 o'clock, and we pre-recorded it because I did. That's kind of late to be doing a live show when you're an old sleepyhead. But it's a good. It's Para X podcast, I believe, is what it's called. And we had a great time. This hour-long show, and she talked about my books and my Patreon, and that's how I got. She became a patron on my Patreon account, patreon.com/myhauntedDolls.
Is that the show you did, what, a week ago or so?
It was this last Friday night.
Yeah, a few days ago, yeah.
Yeah.
That's Kevin. He's cheating on me.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, don't surprise me. And you wonder why you're single.
I gotta promote.
That's it. It's a full-time job. You got to live it, breathe it, eat it, drink it. I mean, look how long it took us to get you up to over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. We fought that long and hard.
Oh, that's 1,100 now, and now I got just about as many Facebook followers on My Haunted Dolls Facebook.
That's great. That's great.
So yeah.
Okay, I think you said he was going to try to reconnect, but if you got something to tell, go ahead and get started with it, and we'll.
Well, I can look for. I can look see is there another Shadow People story out here. I was trying to think of another one.
Nose. Remember that? The Shadow Knows? Wasn't that old radio show or something? The Shadow Knows.
There's a movie called The Shadow.
This is like The Shadow Knows. That was an old radio show or old TV show.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I found a horror story here called Shadow People.
All right. Well, go ahead and Tell it.
And so it starts out, "Oh, hi." Those were the only words I could muster when I sat up in bed. In front of me in the open bedroom door stood a shadowy figure. It stood there, motionless, silent. I continued staring. It remained standing in the open doorway, no features. It appeared to be human. Was it Mom? Dad? I could not speak. I was too scared. It could not be my parents. Why would they just stand there? Why did I wake up? Why was I sitting up in bed staring back? The fear welled up inside me, but I didn't move. I wanted to drift back and pull the covers over my head, but I was frozen in fear. Just then, the door began to close slowly. No hand was used. The figure did not move. As the door was closing, the figure disappeared. I looked around the room. Nothing was there. I slowly laid down again, this time pulling the covers over my head in total fear. I fell asleep. I'm one of 6 children. I was about 10 years old when this happened. In my house at the time were my 5 brothers and sisters, my mom and dad, and my grandfather.
I finally entered. Hello, how are you?
Oh, hello.
Great. Welcome aboard, Bruno. You prefer to be called Bruno?
Thanks, mate. Yeah, my name is Bruno. I'm
Bruno.
actually I live in Australia, but I'm from Brazil originally.
Oh,
Okay. So
Yeah.
how was your afternoon?
So far, so good, mate. Nice and cloudy.
Well, we've got rain coming tomorrow. Of course, it is like 8:36 here in the evening.
Awesome.
We've had a lot of rain recently. In fact,
yes.
yeah, we got. What's the temperature like there?
Oh, us too. We had like 5 days, consecutive days of rain. Raining
wow.
like there was no tomorrow, but was good because it was so hot here.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it cooled down a lot. It was extremely hot. I live in Brisbane.
okay. Yeah, I remember now. So you got
Yeah.
your washing machine?
Oh yeah, mate. I set that up already. Next day.
Okay. Keep me
Um,
posted.
Yeah, I'll keep you posted. It's there working,
Good.
and
We
yeah, it
talked
looks
also.
awesome.
I'm sorry.
Sorry?
No, go ahead.
What did you say? Yeah, it looks
We-
great. I just set that up. I read your book and I'm ready to go.
Okay. Well, I say best wishes, right?
Yeah, always, mate.
Good deal. So we also talked about the vampire machine. And
Oh
psychic.
yeah, I want that baby.
So
Because
I'm also building a Tepaphone. You ever heard of a Tepaphone?
I've heard about it, and yeah, maybe one day in the future. That
Yeah.
looks like the ultimate whatever it is for something, you know.
Well, okay. So, well, of course, we've been. This is Kevin, and you've watched the show before.
Hey Kevin, how are your
Hi,
haunted?
man.
Say hello to your haunted dolls, mate.
Okay. Yeah, I got one right here.
They look,
He
they
has,
look super sweet, mate.
he has over 300 haunted dolls in his house.
Oh man,
Yeah.
Yeah, dolls, paintings.
are you
and
kidding?
everything.
Bruno,
Man.
what's this experience? This
Sorry?
this right here. Talk to us. You got attacked by one?
Yeah, like about 2 to 3 weeks ago, I woke up and there was one right on top of me, trying to choke me. So, but
Wow.
he didn't realize that I've done martial arts and I choked it back, so it disappeared. It was trying to scare me, you know.
But you're not easily scared, are you?
No, because they're petty beings. Really, they're there to scare you. They're there to feed on your fears.
So they are like a human, a psychic vampire.
Could be, but Carl Jung describes that like they are our negative, petty, all the things that we suppress in our nature. They became those beings.
So they collect all our negative energy.
Correct. So the
Okay.
Hetman is one of their top dogs. They have the children one. They have one that they call it's a big one. They call him Legion.
Yes, yes.
They
Legion.
have the women. They have the children. The children usually have eyes. Like I've never seen them. I've seen this one. I've seen this one that was trying to shock. He really stared on my face, and I said, "Okay, you are done now." And I choked him. My astral body is strong, so I choked him back.
You got to explain that, Bruno. These shadow figures are shadow figures. You saw I've got a picture of one I caught, and I have seen one before. So you're not physically attacking this shadow figure. It's your astral self that's coming out. How do you accomplish? What do you go through internally to force that situation?
I think it's a survival mode. Like it's just built-in feature. It's just a built-in feature after you develop your shadow self, and not your shadow self, your astral body. It just goes on automatic mode pretty much.
So why do you think this? Why do you think this shadow person came to you at that moment? What have you ever had that experience before? Or is this the first time?
It's a gnosis type of experience. So they came to try me, like, so the lights in my room started flickering. They went off for 2 weeks. I said, okay, I'll stay in the dark because they thrive in the void, in the dark. They want to scare you, you know. And I said, you can come. And I noticed something in the left corner all night watching me. I said, oh, mate, you can feel comfortable in my place. It's a bit scary. I got some shivers, but I said, I'm going to face this. And pretty much they're there to feed on your fears. They're petty. Once you challenge them, they go away. Because they're made of the worst characteristics that the human beings are made of.
So you studied this subject out.
Mate, it's because in my life, even my brother, one of my brothers, he was into the booze, and he used to come back home. Can you understand me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he used to come back home and drunk, and he used to prepare 2 identical meals. He would eat one and leave one, okay, untouched. So one night, my mother told him to go to bed, and the TV was on. She said, turn the TV off and go to bed. He said, don't turn the TV off. She said, why? Because the guy with the hat there watching TV. So that got stuck in my mind. I was a teenager, you know, and lots of people report seeing this man with the hat. It's all over the world. I'm from Brazil, so it's all over the world, this thing. Yeah. And then there is someone out there in the occult making an experiment. He is placing sigils and is opening portals for those things to come in.
Right.
You know? So they're coming from their dimension to this one. But they're petty, mate. You just, like, I know it's scary, like, but you just face them. One thing I learned is in the case you are by yourself, you have a flashlight and you flash at them and start abusing them. And that's how you banish it, you know? With a flashlight.
Right.
And lots of abuse.
So, Bruno, yesterday morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, out in the country, north of us, where I live, way north. A couple was going to work. They leave for work like 4 a.m. Total darkness. It's cloudy. It was rainy, like where you are. It wasn't raining at the moment, but there was cloud coverage. There was no stars, no moon, no ambient light anywhere. And they get a hold of me, and they saw a shadow figure. It was already dark, but this figure was dark in the darkness, and it darted across in front of them. Less than a half a mile ahead was a tree down in the road. They felt that this shadow figure was warning them about that tree.
There are similar things like in the Brazilian folklore that you dream with those things. They come to call you, and they point a location. And usually back in the days, people used to bury their goods, like if they had gold, silver, something precious. They say they used to bury it by a tree trunk.
Right.
So they come to, that's Brazilian folklore. So they come to, in your dreams, they come to tell you that you have to go to such a location and unbury those items. Huh?
So are you suggesting then that couple should go back to where that tree was and dig around there, look around?
Why not? Take a metal detector and go there, mate.
Yeah, that's interesting. Boy, that would be fascinating if they found something, you know.
Yeah.
So if they find Bruno, if they find some gold or some buried treasure, since you informed them of this, do they need to send you some of the treasure?
My grandmother, when she was a child, she's long deceased. She said she dreamed with it, and she took her mother and a group of people and went. The thing said, you go at midnight to this tree trunk.
Right.
And don't look. Once you are unburying it, don't look back. They said something started making such horrible noises that everybody fled. Everybody just vanished, running throughout the night. You know.
So in other words, Bruno, you find the treasure and you take off. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and they leave you alone. If that's the case, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, I've got 2 metal detectors.
Awesome.
So we got.
But with shadow people, don't. It can be scary, especially for who never faced paranormal stuff. But they're just there to scare because they feed out of fear. You know, they feed out of fear. You just don't feed them. Just face them, and they vanish.
Well, that's exactly what I tell people. They're like bullies. And if you don't give the bully what they want, they move on. Yeah.
They move on.
That's why Kevin never has a problem with his haunted dolls, is because he's not afraid. So they don't give him a problem.
For Kevin, that's a wicked heron. You know?
That's not a wicked heron. They are lovely spirits. There's only a few negative ones. I bless those things, but
Jesus Christ. And I thought I was bad collecting Playboy magazines. What do you make?
Now, Bruno, I don't know. He might have a closet full of Hustler magazines. I don't know.
Oh man! It was very nice to chat with you. I'll have to leave now, but yeah, man, I follow your channel, and I love that wishing machine. And in the future, I want to get the vampire machine, just because I want to experiment with that and see the benefits of it.
Okay, well, send me email and give me a little review so I can share it with other people what you think about it.
Yeah, I'm seeing, like, I had the previous wishing machine, but that was the only one I had. And I said, okay, I need something else to compare. But since I started, it took me like 3 months to set my first one up. But since I set that one up, mate, my life is just going like isn't it? I cannot even describe. So I have two now. I'm just expecting for money to fall from the skies now.
So do you set your intention the same on both machines?
No, different intentions.
Different intentions.
Similar.
Okay. Mhm.
One is more generic, and one's more specific. Yours is
Okay.
more specific on your machine. The other one is generic. It's a cover it all type of request.
Right. Well, Bruno,
Yeah.
thank you for coming on with us, and
Thanks,
keep me posted.
It was a pleasure meeting you guys. Kevin, mate, I have to come to the USA to meet your sweetie, though.
There you go.
My sweetie.
And it was a pleasure, Dr. Kelsey. You guys take
Good.
care and Merry Christmas. All the best.
And peace.
All right.
You take care, Bruno, and don't be a stranger.
Thanks, mate.
All right. Good day. All right. That was interesting.
That was
So,
it.
Yeah. Well, he gave a little different take on this shadow person thing, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
And I liked what he said. The experience this couple had yesterday morning with the tree. It's like, we got to get the metal detector. Check that out, Well, you don't know, right?
Yeah.
If you don't do it, and I would video myself doing that. I'd set up a video camera. But I got to get with, you know who I'm talking, Brandon. We got to find out where that tree was, buddy.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody. This is our secret. Tell Jesse. Don't tell anybody. We got to know where that is. And there you go. That's what I'm talking about, right there. So, gosh, that was very interesting. I was tickled that he finally got on with us all the way from Australia.
Yeah, good eye. Good eye, Mike.
Oh. So at the end of all this conversation about shadow men and whatnot, Kevin, at the end of this, with what you've read tonight and then the interview we had with Bruno from Australia, and he's well versed in this, isn't he?
Yeah.
So at this moment, where are you with your understanding of shadow men, hat men? Where are you with it?
Well, I'm sitting here in my house, in my office here. I mean, it's just one of those things. I just don't know for sure. I mean, I don't discard the idea. I did have that one incident when I was really little and saw those shadow people going past the window, or at least in the reflection of the window. What they are, I don't know. I think they're like everything else. There are probably some good and some evil. So I don't know that it's automatically evil, but I think spirits can kind of come in whatever form they want to.
Well, his take on it was that these entities, they get their power, they get their source of energy from the negative that we hold in, I guess.
Yeah, the evil ones definitely.
Yeah. So that's pretty fascinating stuff. And then when I retold the story about what happened yesterday morning, that's what blew my mind. Kind of distracted me from what we're talking about because I'm thinking about buried treasure now. But
get that wishing machine out.
There you go. Well, the thing about it is, the wonderful thing about the internet and what we're doing here is just like you on YouTube. You get to connect with a lot of interesting people literally around the world.
Yeah. I've been all around the world on the internet now.
Never left Chelsea and seen the world.
Nope. Didn't have to pay fare.
Oh man, didn't have to go to customs or anything else.
Eat peanuts and drink little cups of soda on the plane.
I don't even know if they give you the peanuts anymore. Right?
Probably not.
Been a few minutes since I've flown. Well, like I said, my first experience with a shadow man goes back a good 60 years ago, and I still remember it very clearly to this day. I could take you exactly where it took place in North Alabama and show you exactly where my bed was, and I can show you what window I saw that shadow hat man in, because that's how profound that little experience was. What do you got there? You sharing something with us?
Oh no, it's just a piece of junk mail I'm gonna throw away on the way out. It's an expired coupon.
Oh, okay. Might as well throw it in the garbage.
I was just kind of just flipping around with it.
Well, again, we've covered right at 2 hours of interesting topics. And folks, I got to tell you, Kevin and I don't do a lot of preparing for this show.
No, there's no order, as you can tell. No.
Sometimes it'll be Tuesday afternoon, and Kevin will message me and say, "What are we talking about tonight?" And I'll throw back at him. It's like, I ain't got a clue.
If we had a producer, they'd probably quit within the hour.
Say good night to Brandon there.
Good night, Brandon there.
He gets up like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, so I know he's
that's early for me.
Works up in Coleman. He runs Blount County Bigfoot Research Organization, even though he's been so busy in recent times that he's not been out looking for Bigfoot forever. So, but he's a good guy. So this is Abnormal Alabama. We live stream this simultaneously on Facebook as well as on YouTube, and then Kevin shares it in a lot of different places. Once we get rolling, some haunted doll sites and who knows where else. So if you, and I say this over and over, and I mean it, Kevin means it. If you've got any interesting stories and you want to be part of this show, invite yourself on. You know, we don't know you, so let us know you're there. And if you got, just like the guy from Australia, of course, I'd already been introduced to him because he's got one of my wishing machines. So fascinating stuff. Learn something from that guy. If you see a shadow man, you might want to kind of don't run from it. You might want to kind of investigate, because if they lead you to a tree somewhere, who knows? Might be better than winning the lottery. Maybe this whole thing about the rainbow is false. You know, and what's the entity with the rainbow? The
leprechaun.
Leprechaun. So maybe the leprechaun is playing tricks on us, and really you should be following the shadow man to to find your buried treasure. You got any last words for us, Kevin?
Last words.
Final thoughts of the evening.
Oh, that sounds scary.
Yeah, that's the message.
My final words. Bye at myhauntedDolls.com. My Haunted Collection, The Dark Side, my newest book. Go buy that at myhauntedDolls.com to get it autographed, or you can get it on Kindle or Amazon. Please, I need the sales.
He's trying to retire like next week.
Pity a poor man.
Datingthedead.com. That is not the book cover I'm using right now, but the content. In fact, I upgraded the book because I found a bunch of new stories to put in the book. So the book's a lot thicker, and I changed the cover of the book. And I'm like, Kevin, I never have one around when I need it. But datingthedead.com, and you'll find it. Kevin went through and deleted my stuff.
I did not. I think Krampus did it.
Oh yeah. Kind of family resemblance there on my side. Everybody, be safe.
Yeah.
This COVID-19 is some serious stuff, and unfortunately, I know too many people that have been. Some lost their lives. Some have just been violently ill. Others just barely sick. But be thoughtful and be safe. Be like Kevin and I. We stay home a whole lot.
Yeah. To wear my
This would
mask
be-
out.
Yeah, this would be a good time, folks, to start collecting dolls or something. They make good company.
Yes, we make really good company.
Look at those eyes. Look at those eyes on that
I
doll.
know.
I know. Okay,
She's
that's
awesome.
I'm
That's cat.
I am picking up Friday an interesting doll that I'm going to
Oh.
show you. Very unique,
Oh.
about the size of the one that you put up there, but this is a very unique one. And so I'll share that. All right, folks, it's 9:00. We're going to say good night and peace and love and all that wonderful stuff. Say good night, Kevin.
Good night, Kevin.